forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
That's right. Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shining Side Out, show number 611. 110 and 600. It's way up. A lot of shows. Now, donate if you can. Donate if you can. This is listener-funded radio. Very important to understand. There's no one else giving the station money, just you. Okay, so if you like what you're hearing, not just this show, but all the shows, the other shows, maybe you don't like the show. Maybe you hate. Maybe you just listen to hate it. Get a good hate on. I hate Mackie and Dave. They're horrible. But I can't look away. It's hideous.
Wave your arm, hurt boy.
Oh boy. But maybe you like it. It's even better. So please donate if you can. If you can't donate, tell people about the station. That's a good idea. Because if you tell people about the station, then they can donate on your behalf. For themselves. I mean, just in general. It doesn't have to be on your behalf to just donate in general. You can also use the archives, as you know. Free. That's good. Another reason to donate. But, Dave, tell you what. How about them apples? We are chin deep.
Oh.
Aren't we? Chin deep. I'll tell you what.
Other computational similarities is where I'm up to.
And that's where we are, my friend. Go ahead.
Would you like me to commence?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Just to give everyone a little hint, we're talking about the evidence that our reality is digital, and we've covered 6 points already. This is the 7th. Other computational similarities. Many researchers have also noted that a simulation model solves the prime mover philosophical problem. While the Big Bang Theory implies a universe that arises from nothing, which has no grounding in objective reality, a virtual reality can easily boot up from an external context. In Brian Whitworth's paper, The Emergence of a Physical World from Information Processing, he outlines several additional examples of circumstantial evidence that our universe is a simulation, including the 3 points: randomness and apparent lack of hidden variables. Ooh. Number 2, it never made sense to Einstein nor other scientists that particles would behave randomly, e.g. radioactive decay, as opposed to following deterministic rules. However, in a computational model, random number generations are a simple concept, even in today's systems, and can easily be used to drive apparently random behavior, with or without a seed. You'll know what that means if you program things. Probability waves are easy to create, related to the point above. The probability waves that describe all matter are responsible for the real effect of quantum tunneling, have no basis in objective reality. Wave your arm harder, boy. Objective reality. Yet are easy to construct programmatically.
It's interesting. I always use a new random seed whenever I play a game. When I start a new round, always a new random seed. But we touched on something here that is really important, and in fact fundamental, if you will, to our existence, which is the question as to the origin or the beginning. Right now, everybody's sort of landing on the Big Bang. There's a Big Bang. There it is. Big Bang and the Big Bang. Everything just started. Everything was
Woof.
infinitely compressed into a singular point in space and time. In fact, space and time didn't exist.
Nope.
Then all of a sudden there was this massive, I guess, let's call it an explosion, because, why not? And we came into existence. Time, space, dimensional reality all popped out. The other theories, of course, there's the cyclical nature of the multiverse, where the universe that we inhabit, or maybe even the multiverse, expands and then contracts. Expands, contracts, expands, contracts. Other yet are more violent, where the universe will die a violent death, or it will just sort of cool off.
It'll just go into darkness, yeah.
Darkness, and then something else will start. But the truth is this: we have no idea. The Hindus believe that we're just a dream of a sleeping god, or it's not the Hindus, some Hindus, I should say. And some people believe, completely different things to that yet again. And some people believe that the Earth is 6,000 years old. Okay, Bishop Usher computated the age of the Earth based on biblical genealogy and timelines, etc., etc. And I think it was 6,006. I could be wrong, but 6,006. 4006 or 4004 BC, so 6,000 years ago, and I believe it was a Thursday afternoon. That's what I said. But that was probably more tongue-in-cheek. So you have to look again. These are all beliefs. Now, we do think that based on background radiation and cosmic radiation and the expansion of the universe, etc., etc. In fact, the universe seems to be expanding in all directions, which means that everything is expanding away from us, sort of like when you blow up a balloon. You know what I mean? If you blow up a balloon,
that's the exact example that physics gives.
Yeah.
In describing the expansion of the universe, yeah.
But see, this is. Let me just postulate this. This is from our point of view. I'm saying, okay, from our point of view, which I think is odd. Why is it odd? Because if it is that view from our vantage point, right, that everything is sort of expanding away from us, then how would it look from Alpha Centauri? What I mean by that is, if I were on Alpha Centauri, would I also see the other stars expanding away from me, or am I just expanding away from the Earth? So it must be true that we're all expanding away from each other, but that means that the distances between star systems and galaxies must become increasingly larger. Yeah. I don't know if that is true.
Well, we can't prove any of it, right?
That's the thing.
It's
right?
a theory.
And sorry, by the way, it was October 23rd, 4004 BC.
Nice.
So just oh, good Lord. And I think it was a Thursday afternoon, whatever. But it is really interesting that we just don't know. We see redshift and green shift, and Dave has a different idea about that, as opposed to some mainstream scientists. And why can't we have a universe that is eternal? Like it never started. Let's say it just never started. It was always there, and it will always be there. Is that something that is possible as well? And the answer again is we don't know. We don't know. And these are the questions that I really grapple with. And you ask, why, Mick? What's the point? It doesn't really do anything to your day-to-day life. Well, life is, as far as we know, at least, it seems to be finite. So we live however many years we live, and I'm now at an age where I've got more years behind me than in front of me. Okay, that's the ripe old age I'm at, unless science, right? But we'll see. So the question then becomes, well, what is it all about? Because fundamentally, we distract ourselves with all the unimportant stuff. We distract ourselves with mundane things because we don't want to face the ultimate reality, which is that we won't be here one day, or at least not in this experiential reality, right? somewhere else, maybe, or maybe nowhere. Some of my friends believe, no, that's it. That's it. You're done. It's all over. Right. Well, maybe. I don't know. But maybe there's something else. Are we going to remember it? Looks like some of us do, because there is evidence for incarnation, believe it or not. Right?
That's right.
Fairly strong, too, and I think we'll talk about that in a little while. But it is a really, for me, these are the only questions that really matter. Not if I can afford another big screen TV, or what kind of car I'm going to lease in 6 years' time, or, is my job going to pay me enough money to go to a Hawaiian holiday? By the way, I've only ever been to Hawaii once when I flew through. I didn't really go to Hawaii, so I was just at the airport. But the point is, right, it's these are the only questions that actually matter, ultimately, because our existence here is brief by any measure. It is. And then what? And not only that, what about before? Did we all individually experience a Big Bang to come into existence? Is that what happens when you get consciousness? You just spontaneously, bang into existence. Is that what happens? I don't know, right? Sorry, but it was important because it was mentioned here, right? The Big Bang and what happens? How did the universe boot up at some point, right? As they put it. Now let's talk about the next point here, as to why this might be a simulation, which is in fact explanatory power. The huge set of well-studied anomalies facing us in fields as varied as physics, entanglement, for example, philosophy with near-death experiences, for instance, and geology, anthropology, and its parts really, out-of-place artifacts, metaphysics like precognition, for example, and psychology can all be explained only by a programmed reality model. No other theory has that explanatory capacity. Not entirely true. Not entirely true, and I'll tell you why. So all of these anomalies, all the strangeness, all it tells us that we don't understand the universe. All we know for a fact at this point in time, the only thing we know for sure, is that we don't understand the universe or our reality to the extent that we would like. Because there are too many things that are missing from our theory to work. We have to shoehorn too many things. 98%, I'm sorry, I always come back to this, 98% of the universe is missing. What? Missing, gone, not here. We can't explain entanglement. Absolutely, we can't explain it. We can't explain the double-slit experiment. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And we do have parts, out-of-place artifacts. They exist. They are there. They're physical realities. You can touch them, right? And it's not just artifacts, but also stories, right? That we used to think of as fairy tales. So, if you say, well, if it is a program, in fact, the Matrix made that point in the second Matrix movie. That's all these stories about vampires and such. They're all left over from earlier versions. That's right, of the Matrix.
Iterations, yeah.
Correct. And again, it's a great way to tell the story. And you know what? Hey, maybe that's true. I don't know. Sorry, Dave. Of course, the final point is yours.
Oh, I was going to include dragons, Mackie.
Yes, good point.
A lot of countries have dragons, and some of them weren't meant to even talk to each other. Quetzalcoatl, Mackie, was a serpent. Yeah, flying serpent. Yeah, tell me about that one. Go on, I'll wait for you. So it's go ahead, I'll wait for you.
Anya.
Now, do you remember? I forget his name now. Comedian Rodney Rude. If you're an American and you don't know what on earth we're talking about, do search for Rodney Rude and be as shocked as you need to be. Right, and a kids program called Agro, A-G-R-O. They've got some really funny clips there that it was live to air, so a lot of those just went straight to air, and kids didn't know what was going on, but oh boy, yeah, crazy. All right, so number 9, the last point in the list, thermodynamics and the information content of the universe. There is an uncanny similarity to Boltzmann's formula for entropy, which is capital S equals little k I suppose that's times by ln, a little ln, and in brackets a big W, and in both brackets. And Shannon's formula for information entropy, almost identical, except it's H equals E bracket minus ln times by P times by X, close all the brackets. In thermodynamics, entropy is proportional to the logarithm of the number of states that matter can be in. In information theory, entropy is proportional to the logarithm of the probability mass function of some random variable. This doesn't necessarily imply that matter is information, just that they behave similarly at a macroscopic level.
Interesting.
Now, before I hand it back to you, pardon me. Mackie, I found my cough gets better if I put my air conditioning on, remove the moisture from the air, on dehydrate.
Oh, okay.
If I'm turning into a raisin, my lungs are better.
I'll still love you.
Moisture equals bad, right? That's what I've determined. It's in the what was that startup bat that we had? Pre-Windows 3.11. Anyway.
That was way too far back, my friend.
Don't do that. Don't do that to me. I'm old. I'm really old. Anywho, so for those arguing that point 7, where the Big Bang Theory and all of that, just a real quick rundown. When I looked at the Big Bang and heard about that back in the 80s, 82, 83, and I studied relativity 1 and 2. It just didn't seem right to me, and it took me a while to be able to work out what it meant. And I came up with 2 things: one, the transparent universe, which you talked about last week, and this other one, which I did also. I confess to proposing this idea to my physics professor, who's still, as a Yank, we never heard of Rodney Rood. Yeah, well, you should have a look. It's very funny. So he said to me, prove it. And my theory is that light ages and the wavelength deteriorates. So rather than it being the reason why redshift is more severe in light the further it is away from you, because that's translated in current physics or science as meaning that the object is moving faster away from you. So the more redshift, the faster it is moving away from you. If it's blue, like, red and blue, if the light coming to you from the object is shifted into the blue side of the spectrum, then it's coming towards you. It's extremely rare that anything in the universe is doing that, so that's a bit weird. And it just appears to me as though light deteriorates in ages. We don't have there's no theory for the aging of light. There isn't one. But maybe that is a mistake. Maybe that's the flaw in that idea, and that's the only reason that they calculate that we have an ever expanding universe, and also the theory behind the Big Bang. Because if it's expanding, there must have been a time when it was not it was all collapsed in on itself before it started expanding, and therefore the Big Bang came into fact. So, theory. So I proposed that, and he said, just prove it, Dave. Just try and prove it. Just do that. If you can do that, then you've won, and you're there's a new step in physics for us all to have to drink humble pie or eat humble pie. So that's the way I think of it, and it's evidenced also by the wavelength of what we can see visibly, and then as you start to deteriorate light from visible light down into radio waves as the furthest objects that we can see, you can see the wavelength is expanding throughout all of those functions. It just makes total sense that it's the light itself that's aging. And that it's not all flying away from us. It's ridiculous. It totally is ridiculous. I would only support the Big Bang if, at the end of this universe, we started to see it all started to collapse down in itself, and then I would concede. But the way it's been drawn, we're just going to all fly away from each other, never to see anything else. The stars will eventually evolve into red giants and then not evolve any further. They'll probably come into join and meet in some instances into supermassive black holes, and they would be the only things left. There'd be no light, nothing, no energy that we can consume.
See, this is interesting, actually.
And that becomes a one-off universe. The entire universe is a one-off. You what?
Yeah, if we follow this through in thought, right? Because in my opinion, the only solid object in our universe is a black hole. The only actually solid object. Everything else is fluffy. There's no substance to anything apart from a black hole. Wouldn't the universe at some point, if it were to go on forever, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Fill up entirely with black holes? So the entire universe
everything would turn into black holes. They would eat everything.
Yeah, so but that means that eventually we're going from a fluffy state to a solid state.
That's right.
So does it then mean that in fact we are part of a meta-reality right now where we're in a condensed state, so we're like water vapor
in transition,
and we're just waiting to turn to water and then eventually to ice. So I don't know, just the thing is, this universe makes no sense to me. I'm so sorry, it just doesn't make any sense.
But kind of booting one up with all of the rules of a video game, except us inside the video game got smarter than the video game was supposed to allow us to, right? Kind of like Free Guy, where we realized that what we were seeing was a render, and by being able to do a physics test on entanglement and double slit experiment, threw everything out. It threw out that what we were seeing was tangible, was real, and that's the end of it. Like, if we lived in Newton's universe without Einstein, it would be a seriously happy place. We only have momentum, right? We have gravity.
I agree.
So really, really super simple things. We don't even have to do anything more than that. No. Right?
We'd be living in the Clockmaker's universe. Everything is mechanical. And you know what?
Steampunk, mate. I love it.
I was just going to say, it'd be steampunk, man. I love steampunk. Let's be steampunks. Come on.
Yeah, totally.
Really good. There's a really good anime you have to see. And everybody has to see. It's called Steam Boy.
So,
have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh!
I've got it. I've got to see it.
Yeah.
No. You'll send me the link that I can examine it online, right? All right.
Sure.
So just saying all of that. That's why I lean more towards this being a virtual environment, right? That we're all living in. Yes, it feels and everything about it is as real as it could possibly be, but the whole universe is digital. It makes no sense. Yeah, the double slit experiment proves everything is only to our expectation, which I think is grand from this perspective of the rule set that must have been in play for that to work when observed, because that's the same as a video game. If you're going to program a video game with rules around the environment, then you must have a rule for that to be a thing. Because the last thing you want is for people to see it the way it really is. And that's the Matrix, Mickey. That's Neo seeing the lines, right, of the characters. He could see the code.
That's right. He could see into the program, as it were. Right? And the funny thing is this: there are a lot of people that practice yoga, mind control. When I say mind control, in the sense that they control their own mind, body, not being controlled by someone, and they see your aura, for example. So people can see into
Oh, yeah.
deeper into the spectrum, right? And other people are able to, via astral projection, access realms that are beyond this one. Now, a lot of people poo-poo this because it is beyond what they can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's really hard to imagine the world not being Newtonian, as Jeff nuts and bolts, as Dave has said,
mm-hmm.
because, and this is what I think the fundamental. When I talk to people, I think they are in their mind they're living in the Newtonian nuts and bolts world.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we know now, well, we think we know by quantum physics that we're not living in the Newtonian world at all. I mean, if you slept through Einstein, okay, but you should have woken up with quantum physics and say, hey, what happened to Newton now?
This isn't the YMCA.
I love it. But ultimately, and in the final analysis, the universe we inhabit is not an orderly clockmaker's universe. It is not. It has too many random and completely inexplicable, and not only that, it has things in it that are not just inexplicable, but they go against any common sense, any logic we would like to apply. Now, mind you, we're humans, and clearly our logic is limited to what we can imagine. But it makes no sense. It makes no sense in the context in which we live, unless, Dave, we allow for magical thinking.
Ooh.
That's where it gets interesting. I know, right? In fact, I'm not really segueing it, but kind of I am. The thing is this. I don't know if you're a Marvel fan or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a character called the Red Witch, Wanda, right? And she had her role in the show WandaVision, and she was ostensibly the most powerful being in the Marvel universe because she could change reality at will.
Nice.
Like
Q?
True. Like exactly like Q.
Wow.
Exactly like Q.
I like Q.
Now, the next article we have here, excuse me, is in fact a study which essentially says objective reality does not exist. What? I'll let you, if you can just read us, because I talked a lot. If you just want to read us into this, because this is really critical to understand where science is at. We've leapt away from the Newtonian universe, sort of,
Wooshka.
Jumped over Einstein, useful, but ultimately not explaining everything, and right, chin deep into quantum physics. But go ahead, my friend.
Oh, just by the way, thank you very much, Fleece Surf. It's great to be able to hear words like that. Very positive, thank you. Look, in a paper recently published in Science Advances, it was shown that in the micro world of atoms and particles that is governed by the strange rules of quantum mechanics, two different observers are entitled to their own facts. In other words, according to our best theory of the building blocks of nature itself, facts can actually be subjective. There's the abstract here, Mackie, and I'll read that and then I'll hand it to you.
Please.
Yeah? So the scientific method relies on facts established through repeated measurements and agreed upon universally, and we call that locked step agreements, independently of who observed them. Though in quantum mechanics, the objectivity of observation is not so clear, most markedly exposed in Wigner's eponymous thought experiment, where two observers can experience seemingly different realities. The question whether the observers' narratives can be reconciled has only recently been made accessible to the empirical investigation through recent no-go theorems that construct an extended Wigner's friend scenario with 4 observers. In a state-of-the-art 6-photon experiment, we realize this extended Wigner's friend scenario, experimentally violating the associated Bell type inequality by 5 standard deviations. That would be statistically interesting. If one holds fast to the assumptions of locality and free choice, this result implies that quantum theory should be interpreted in an observer-dependent way.
Let's be very clear here. Let's be very clear what's being said here. Objective reality. So there is an apple in the world. There's an apple. There it is. Green apple. Granny Smith. That apple, these scientists are saying, has no objective reality existence apart from the one that we assign to it. The apple in and of itself does not exist unless we observe it. So the old question as to would there be a sound if a tree fell in the woods and no one was around to hear it is no. There would be no tree falling in the woods. That unless it's observed, it doesn't happen. Now, this is a really, really hard concept. I get it. And I'm struggling with it still. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a banana. See? It's a banana. But the truth here, or at least what the experiments seem to show, right, is that reality, as it is rendered or unfolds or is divinely inspired as we go along, must be observed by us to exist. And that is fundamentally what the double-slit experiment has already told us. Okay? Quantum decoherence only occurs if you look at it. I know I'm simplifying it, but that's what it is. It only decoheres if you look at it. These are.
It is the fundamental building blocks of our entire universe,
Yeah.
and for there to be a rule on something as innocuous as a photon of light or an electron to behave in a certain way because we look at it. Wow.
I know. This is such a profound statement.
Mm-hmm.
It is such a. And look, there was this documentary that came out years ago called "What the Bleep Do We Know." If you haven't seen it,
Yes.
I highly recommend. What the Bleep Do We Know? There's actually an extended version. I suggest to watch the extended version if you can get it.
Ooh, there's a...
I think I bought it. I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah.
But all the things we're talking about are explained beautifully in there as well. And it is really mind-bending to try to understand. And I honestly believe that we are limited. Right? Thanks, please, sir. It is in our physical present manifestation in this reality matrix, etc., we are too limited, too constricted to observe reality how it really is. However, I do believe that there are creatures, entities, whatever you want to call them, on the planet, in the universe, in our reality that can, in fact, operate in it. Not just observe it, but operate in it. And that's where you have the gateways. You know, that's where you have things that seemingly make no sense at all. The UFOs blipping in and out of existence, impossible speeds, people disappearing under the oddest circumstances, the strangest after effects, and then things reappearing in even stranger circumstances, which is really the kicker if you think about it, right? So what we observe is only a fraction. Let me give you this example. Let's say you colorblind, right? And which means you probably can't see red or green, or there's some other forms of colorblindness. But let's say you can't distinguish between green and red, for argument's sake. But let's say further, the entire world was green and red. Everything was either a shade of green or a shade of red.
And you can't see between the two of them.
No, for you it's all the same.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
So some people that might take clues from, because something might be written green on red or red on red or whatever, you haven't got the capacity to see it. You stumble through the world, thinking, oh, this is all there is. But other people that have the capacity to distinguish colors, those colors,
great example.
They can operate on a different level to you because they see clues that you can't see. For example, right? And like they say, in a kingdom of the blind, or in the land of the blind, the one-eyed is king. Imagine a world where everybody's blind. Just imagine it for a second, right? Everybody's blind. It's just all we have in senses are the senses that we have, but just no sight.
Except for
I come along, let's say, Dave and I, or whatever, Dave comes along, Dave has sight. There's Dave. Dave sees everything, right? So you've got people, now, make no mistake, blind people get around the world. They're okay. I mean, there's this astounding person, scientifically proven that he can do it. He can echolocate.
That's right, using click sounds he makes with his mouth.
Yeah, and he can map the room he's in. So his ears are so finely tuned, like a bat. That's right. That the clicking sound he makes, and as it comes back to him as an echo, in his mind, he can map out the room. Now,
that's right.
Now, you can't do that because your eyes do the job for you, right? So
we've got Wi-Fi doing that now, Mickey.
Yeah. So blind people can get around just like sighted people, maybe not as quickly, but a sighted person definitely has an advantage, right? So certainly when it comes to catastrophic situations, because if you're blind and there are visual cues like there's rocks flying through the air or crevices open up in the earth, then you're screwed because you're blind.
The rest of lemmings, Mickey.
Yeah. Whereas a sighted person has all the advantages. So think of it like that. We are missing, well, not necessarily senses, but maybe there are senses that we're missing, and the capacity to process anything more than 4 dimensions. And I'm talking about time here as 1 dimension. You know what I mean? So, but we do know though, that there's more for us to potentially observe. We just can't. I mean, quantum entanglement makes no sense in the real world, right? In the real world, there's distance, and so anything that happens has to happen over a period of time. It has, because that's just what we think. Clearly not the case. There must be shortcuts. There must be a different substructure to space. There must be some other thing that we are not aware of, which allows for instantaneous communication. Instantaneous, not a little bit later, but instantaneous. That is really what we're struggling with right now, right? So all of these things taken together leave us wondering, well, how real is real anyway? Right? This is what they're saying here. If one holds fast to the assumptions of locality and free choice, again, these are assumptions, right? This result implies that quantum theory should be interpreted in an observer-dependent way. Now, if you do away with locality and free choice, then you got determinism. And well, no space. So what is the answer? The thing is, we don't know. Now, observers are powerful players in the quantum world. According to the theory, particles can be in several places or states at once. This is called a superposition. We discussed it with you guys at length. You should all be very well versed in quantum mechanics.
Oh, totally.
Right? But oddly, this is only the case when they aren't observed. The second you observe a quantum system, it takes a specific location or state, breaking the superposition. Essentially, it collapses the wave function. That's what happens. The fact that nature behaves this way has been proven multiple times in the lab. Obviously, double slit experiment, etc., etc. In 1961, physicist Eugen Wigner, if he was German or Austrian, but if not, then maybe it's American. Eugene Wigner proposed a provocative thought experiment. He questioned what would happen when applying quantum mechanics to an observer that is themselves being observed. Who watches the watchers? Imagine that a friend of Wegener tosses a quantum coin, which is in a superposition of both heads and tails, inside a closed laboratory. Every time the friend tosses the coin, they observe a definite outcome, right? A definitive outcome. We can say that Wegener's friend establishes a fact. The result of the coin toss is definitely head or tail. Now, Wegener doesn't have access to this fact from the outside, and according to quantum mechanics, must describe the friend and the coin to be in a superposition of all possible outcomes of the experiment. That's because they're entangled. And to borrow from Einstein here, spookily connected, so that if you manipulate one, you also manipulate the other. Wegener can now, in principle, verify this superposition using a so-called interference experiment, a type of quantum measurement that allows you to unravel the superposition of an entire system, confirming, in fact, that two objects are entangled. When Wegener and the friend compare notes later on, the friend will insist they saw definite outcomes for each coin toss. Wegener, however, will disagree. Whenever the observed friend and coin are in a superposition. Whenever he observed friend and coin in a superposition. So for him, they were in a superposition, but for the friend, there was an outcome. Right? Friend had the outcome, Wegener had the superposition. This presents a conundrum, obviously. The reality perceived by the friend cannot be reconciled with the reality on the outside. But Wegener originally didn't consider this much of a paradox. He argued it would be absurd to describe a conscious observer as a quantum object. However, he later departed from this view. And according to formal textbooks on quantum mechanics, the description is perfectly valid. Okay? I know that.
Wow, that's great. Well, there was a grant, so I'll make an experiment. Hang on. Pardon me. So 15 minutes. Yeah, it's probably doable. All right. The scenario has long remained an interesting thought experiment, but does it reflect reality? Scientifically, there has been little progress on this until very recently, when Kaslav Brunker,
very good,
at the University of Vienna showed that under certain circumstances, under certain assumptions, Wegener's idea can be used to formally prove that measurements in quantum mechanics are subjective to observers. Bruckner proposed a way of testing his notion by translating the Wegener's friend scenario into a framework first established by the physicist John Bell in 1964. Bruckner considered two pairs of Wegener's friends in two separate boxes, conducting measurements on a shared state, inside and outside their respective box, that is. The results can be summed up to ultimately be used to evaluate a so-called Bell inequality. If this inequality is violated, observers could have alternative facts. We have now, for the first time, performed this test experimentally in Heriot Watt University in Edinburgh on a small-scale quantum computer made up of three pairs of entangled photons. The first photon pair represents the coins, and the other two are used to perform the coin toss, measuring the polarization of the photons inside their respective box. Outside the two boxes, two photons remain on each side that can be also measured. Despite using state-of-the-art quantum technology, it took weeks to collect sufficient data from just 6 photons to generate enough statistics. But eventually, we succeeded, says the author, in showing that quantum mechanics might indeed be incompatible with the assumption of objective facts. We violated the inequality, he says. The theory, however, is based on a few assumptions. These include that the measurement outcomes are now influenced by signals travelling above light speed, and that the observers are free to choose what measurements to make. That may or may not be the case. Another important question is whether single photons can be considered to be observers. In Bruckner's theory proposal, observers do not need to be conscious. They must merely be able to establish facts in the form of a measurement outcome. An inanimate detector would therefore be a valid observer. A textbook, Quantum Mechanics, gives us no reason to believe that a detector, which can be made as small as a few atoms, should not be described as a quantum object just like a photon. It may also be possible that the standard quantum mechanics does not apply at large length scales, but testing that is still a separate problem. This experiment, therefore, shows that, at least for the local models of quantum mechanics, we need to rethink our notion of objectivity. The facts we experience in our macroscopic world would appear to remain safe. But a major question arises over how existing interpretations of quantum mechanics can accommodate these subjective facts. Some physicists see these new developments as bolstering interpretations that allow more than one outcome to occur from an observation. For example, the existence of parallel universes in which each outcome happens. Others see it as compelling evidence for intrinsically observer-dependent theories, such as quantum Bayanism. That's close. Bayesianism. In which an agent's action and experiences are central concerns of the theory itself, but yet others take this as a strong pointer that perhaps quantum mechanics will break down above certain complexity scales. Clearly these are all deeply philosophical questions about the fundamental nature of reality. Whatever the answer, an interesting future awaits.
Indeed. No, I don't think I will be able to share any more text, but that's okay. We did it well today. But there's a lot here to process anyway. So, if these experiments can be taken for what they are, if the assumptions hold, then we can kiss objective reality goodbye. And it would make sense. You know what would make sense? I'll tell you what would make sense. There are two ways you can deal with this information. One, you take responsibility and you fortify your mind. You make your mind as strong as it can be. You meditate, you exercise physically that will strengthen your mind, whatever it takes. But your mind has to become resilient in order to, I guess, have an anchor point in this reality, if that's what you're after. Right? So you must become self-sufficient. You must also have belief in yourself. You must not doubt yourself. And you should, above all, be open to change. I know those things seemingly contradict each other, but they don't. They don't contradict each other, right? A strong mind can change. A weak one cannot. So a strong mind is important. Or you go the route of inherited opinion, and you find refuge with others. But that's okay too.
How about the other option? Make it where I just pull up the blankets over my head and just say it doesn't exist.
Could do that. The much vaunted ostrich method. But yeah, look, that's also it's also an option. Certainly, we've come to a crossroads here in our knowledge, and no matter which way this goes, it will leave us wondering what is real. I mean, is our belief in higher powers misplaced? Because, I'll tell you what. So, objective reality doesn't seem to exist. Reality has to be observed, but clearly, what's observed seems to follow a certain expectation. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a collapse of the quantum state to the one state. So somehow, we must trigger the collapse into that one state that is expected. Is it then not true to say that we have created all our gods and demons? And is it then not also true that these gods and demons might very well have a level of existence as ours? Some people have speculated that the power of prayer and belief gives flesh or reality to the gods. They require to be believed in, to exist. Just like this reality requires to be believed in, to exist. But we do the believing. We create this subjective reality based on our expectations. You see, the best example I can give you of a subjective reality is this. Draw the number 9 on the ground in front of you. Okay, so there's number 9 in front of you and chalk on the ground. Now get a person to stand opposite you and get them to look at the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see?
6s.
That's right. No, it's a 9. Dave goes, no, it's a 6.
Mm-hmm.
And before long, we come to blows. And that's pretty much internet arguing, right?
Oh, I remember you.
But both are correct. Both are correct. Now imagine more complex things that we observe, and from different points of view. It's all true for you. Something else is true for somebody else.
Yeah.
And there's a really beautiful line in a movie. I think it was Angels Over Berlin. I can't remember, the hospital movie. And I think Nicolas Cage was in the American adaptation of it. And he's an angel and he falls in love with this woman from Earth. What? Hey, we've seen that before, right?
Trope. Yep.
What? Yeah. So, and he looks at her intently. And she bites into an apple, right? Or some fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stay with the biblical theme and say it's an apple. and he goes, oh, what's that? What does that taste like? She goes, what? Have you never had an apple before? Don't you know what an apple tastes like? Oh, I know what an apple tastes like, but I don't know what it tastes like for you.
For you, yeah.
Right? And this is where it gets really tricky. And I don't think anyone has come up with a good answer. I mean, people have tried.
Stupid blue dress, white dress with the gold feather out, you know.
Is that? How do we determine that anything but us is real? Right? How do we determine the reality of the rest of the world?
I want to answer it by rephrasing the thing I typed to you. So, it's a question, has the simple matter of believing in a deity who's, all powerful, blah, 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 caused us to not need to know the detail?
Yes. I want to say absolutely, because it's like, your body has a million different functions it performs every second.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to control all of them, that's all you would do. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have something called the autonomous nervous system, so for example, right? There's a lot of autonomous functions that just happen automatically. Breathing, pumping of your blood, a secretion of sweat, a production of sugars for your brain, etc., etc. Like all the stuff that your body does, it just does without you needing to step in. And what you just said, Dave, I think is very much along the same vein. Having created these deities has alleviate the need for us to continuously imagine, maybe, reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like if there was a computer problem, we just outsource it to someone else. We don't have to worry about that problem anymore.
Well, let's hope they do it.
Let's hope they don't do that.
Is that the music?
Yeah, that's the music already.
Holy moly.
Well, you know what? We've come to the conclusion of episode 611. Second hour. Coming up next is Jer Bear with his awesome show After Hours. Do step in, do listen, do call in, do get into the chat room and talk to him while it's on air. And maybe I think you can ask a question or you can get into it. And a little shout out to Hijacker there in the chat room. And we're going to catch you 7 o'clock a.m. Tuesday and Thursday for Plato's Cave, and then the same again next weekend for another Shiny Side Out. In the meantime, take it easy and be nice to everybody.